Play-by-post is a noble tradition that predates tabletop role-playing games entirely. This is how people used to play chess over long distances when they had weird schedules and they wanted to fully engage their tactical minds to make good decisions and play better opponents. The concept is really simple for a tactically based game that you have all the information you need to make a move. In chess or Dominions 5, you look at the board and you move your piece and you write your move down and then you mail it to your opponent. Locally, they make your move and then they think through their move and they send that to you. There's no downtime really. You're just waiting for it in the mail. That is the post part of play-by-post. In tabletop role-playing games, this is most commonly done on forums or through Discord these days, but it is still sometimes done through mail. And there are problems with it that are not present with a game like chess. So most systems require a lot of back and forth between the game master and the player. So to ask a simple question like, is there moss on the wall? You have to send it and then wait and then receive it, and then they can make their move. Informed decisions, right? This makes play-by-post not entirely appropriate for tabletop role-playing games, although it works for some people with weird schedules. It is the preferred playstyle of dozens of people, but nearly every game has to be modified to be more playable through that format. Now, when I tell people that I want to play through text, they hear play-by-post because of the forums, because of Discord. But that is not at all what I mean. I'm talking about playing through text. Now, that might seem ridiculous to explain, but just this week I have argued at least twice that text is not play-by-post. And this goes back to pretty much any time there's been a text interface, be it cell phones, IRC, forums, anything at all where I can say something and you can say something in relatively real time. There have been people playing role-playing games through text. It is exactly the same as sitting in a chat room and chatting, except that you're rolling dice and playing the game. For some reason, people really struggle with the idea of just dropping into a chat room, joining the game, playing for a bit, and then dipping out without all the scheduling issues, without a whole lot of hoopla. So, I'm actually going to walk us through a completely contrived example that is just me talking to myself, just to make it clear what I'm talking about when I say we should play tabletop role-playing games through text. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is just the flow of play. There is no talking over each other in text, but there are those little annoying so-and-so is typing notices, and people tend to stop typing when they see that. When you're playing a TTRPG through text, you can't stop. You have to just keep going. You also don't have time to do big flowery paragraphs. You have to just talk normally. So just going through this, what we can see is that the storyteller has plenty of time to type the next big, set the scene message, while the players can interact with each other, and they're not worried about talking over the GM or stalling things out. It's actually more content packed into the same time, because there are multiple threads of conversation happening, much like you might see at an actual table. So what you'll also see in this example are all the standard questions that you would normally ask while playing. And that's totally fine. That's what I'm talking about, just playing through text. So in this example, we've got 4 cultists in a room, and we see them through this door, and we're making a plan between 3 players. What are we going to do? 2 of them are going to hide on one side of the wall, and the other one's going to get the cultist's attention and run down the hall. This way we can get an ambush on both sides. So the storyteller calls for hide checks. Both of you roll hide checks, and then I'll roll for them when they come out. Player 2 rolls a 3. Player 3 says they have the sneaky tag. They know they need to roll 2d6, so they roll a 4 and a 5. Conveniently, this is all stored in the chat, so I don't actually have to write it down, although I probably will. You'll see that the chat dips in and out of character. Sometimes we're saying things in character, sometimes we're saying things as our players. A lot of people will use parentheses around messages that are out of character, and this is very common if most of your conversation is in character. Okay, so when a player has to leave, they'll just say they have to go. And from that point on, everyone in the party just stops referencing them, like they never existed. They can talk about them in the past tense, They can talk about them in the future tense, but nobody gets hung up on the questions of like, well, how did they get into the dungeon? How do they get out of the dungeon? Are they safe? Are they dead? Are they sleeping? We don't do that because we as players know that the person just had to go. And we're not going to penalize them for that. We're just going to keep rolling. We're going to go into the zone of truth. We're going to ask the questions to the cultists. This will immediately shift the balance of a fight, for example, but that is part of being a good GM, is like making it work. Joining in is a little more complicated, and it relies on the fact that you know the game, you have an existing character sheet that is ready to go, and that you don't mind waiting 20 seconds. Also, improv is a big part of it. So, as we see here, Jeannie is back. All right, guys, I'm back. Jeannie's ready to join whenever. In parentheses means it's out of character, just letting us know when there's a beat in the story that she could feasibly enter the room. We're going to describe her entering the room. And that brings her into play. Player 2 knows that they can start playing normally, taking actions, saying things. So drop in, drop out is when you want to drop in, you signal the GM, and he'll bring you in when it's time. When you want to drop out, you just say, I gotta go, and then everyone forgets you exist. If the player count gets too low, or the GM is done, or you really want to wait on the party for some big event that's coming up, like a boss fight, you can just stop right there. And most text applications, like Discord, will save the history, so you can literally freeze time right there with all the reference, everything you need to just dive right back in where you stopped. This is different than playing on voice. This is different on playing VTTs, because while everything is still in place, you don't have the history to reference to be like, well, what was I literally doing right this second? And yeah, so playing through text does not have to be some big thing. It's very easy to just drop in and out. There are a ton of advantages that I will list on screen in just a moment, but you should try it sometime. If you're sitting in a Discord channel, chatting for an hour anyway, why not roll some dice? Have a fun adventure, and just drop in and drop out as you need to. So there are some disadvantages to text. If you're dealing with a slow typist, you are waiting kind of a long time to see what happens next. Usually this is fine, but if the difference between the slowest typist and the fastest typist is too far, that is going to create friction for the fastest typist. Usually, not always. Some games rely very heavily on their grids and their exact measurements, and that can be a struggle in pure text. Before we can talk about the advantages of playing through text, it is important to understand that it is a fundamentally different pacing than audio, voice, virtual tabletops, video, playing at a table, and those are all different from each other too. So it is a little bit more laid back. It's slower pace. Your brain is in a different mode. It's more of a reading and writing narrative mode than, for example, moving through Fog of War on Roll20 and seeing what happens. You are much more concerned with keeping the fiction in your brain and comprehending the words that you're reading. It's very receptive. Also, unlike voice or video, you can listen to whatever music you want without missing anything. You're just reading text, so like you can listen to death metal and you don't have to worry about like missing the hint to the puzzle. It's there in text, you can reference back to it. Referencing back to things is a huge advantage of text. People like me who get distracted very easily can go back and read what somebody said, what the roles were, what the GM asked for, what the hint was. It's very, very helpful for people that have trouble staying on task. There's no disconnect between like the human and their character. If I'm playing with Bill and Bill wants to play Lily the lady tiefling thief, I don't have to do that conversion in my brain at all. I just read Lily the tiefling thief. That's just a character that exists in my brain with no relationship to Bill, which is really great in some cases. You're also not dealing with anybody's background noise if they have kids or if they have angry parents or fans or whatever. None of that comes into play. Accents aren't a problem. Not speaking English at all. Some people only read and write English. That lets you play with them. They can use translators, and it's not that big of a deal. It slows us down a little bit, but not a problem. Speaking of people that have kids that need to take frequent breaks, if you just let them take more of a background passive role in the party, they can still participate in the whole game. They can take turns when they're there, and if they need to stop suddenly, it's not a big deal. They can also catch up quickly if they step away for 15 seconds and then come back. They could just read what was said, and then they're in it. They don't have to ask anyone. They don't have to stop things or slow things down for themselves. They just take a more passive role, and that works out for a lot of parents. I talked a little bit earlier about there being multiple threads going on at any time. So while I'm typing out the description of the room, everyone can see that the GM is typing. And they can take that opportunity to do some roleplay that's not going to slow anything down. It's not going to interrupt anybody. Nobody's fighting for airspace. It's just all happening at the same time. Once in a while, that does mean that you'll have to retcon something, but competent roleplayers, you're going to be absolutely fine. It is a lot less fighting with tech because all you need is a chat interface of any kind. There's no setting up microphones. There's no bumping the microphones. There's no worrying about chewing into the mic. You can eat whatever you want while you play. The rest of these are going to be kind of personal reasons, but I think they'll apply to a lot of you, honestly. Like, no offense. But I'm a shy guy. It actually takes physical effort, not just emotional effort, for me to talk, because I've spent 30 years on the internet. I type primarily. That is my first method of communication. Sign language is actually easier for me than talking. So right now, what I'm doing right now is taking physical effort. And sometimes I don't have the physical effort to project my voice enough to be heard on a microphone that's 2 inches from my mouth. Playing through text lets me play anytime. If my wife's asleep, I still get to play. Also, a personal one is saying things with a straight face. Sometimes I have awesome dialogues in my head, but because, again, primarily typing is my way of communicating, it is actually very awkward for me to say things that I have absolutely no problem typing. It's very awkward for me to play like a flirty character or an intimidating character. Anyone with a strong personality, I hesitate to be like, your money or your life, right? Like, it's awkward. But if you type it, it is believable because the person has created the character in their own minds and it totally fits with the character. There's no awkwardness of you. And I get that that can be the fun part. I do. I like playing through video. I like playing in person. But if you consider all these advantages, these very specific advantages, not pure advantages, just these are the advantages of text. If you consider them, I think you will find that you can play more games at more times, possibly unscheduled in a drop-in, drop-out fashion, if you give text a try. So my main goal with this video was just to point out that text is not play-by-post. These are two entirely separate concepts. I've been mad about this for 4 days if you can't tell. So, try text. Join me. We'll play some pickup games. Words of Power is specifically suited to text-only play because the battle board is labeled and static. And so we can have full tactical depth without changing the game, without ignoring any of the rules. All right. Have a great day.